Welcome everyone to the Calm Your Anxiety Summit. Today I'm really excited to introduce you to Christy Curtis. She is from Christy Curtis Yoga, and she is the author of a book called Gratitude and Mindfulness Learning Journal, a workbook for social emotional development. She specializes in teaching others the method of mindfulness, which is a technique of learning how to develop an inward relationship with oneself by listening to the language of the body through yoga, mindfulness, and social emotional wellness. She is a certified yoga instructor, a mindfulness coach, an MBSR teacher, an educator, and she just has a wealth of knowledge what she shares with teachers, educators, professional athletes, students, and adults. So we're really excited to have her here today. So thank you, Christy, for joining us on the summit.
Yes, and thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for those that are watching.
Great. And today, Christy's going to talk to us about a 3-step approach to calm anxiety. So tell us, we know there's this increase in stress in educators, burnout, and things. So you've been working as a teacher for many years. So have you ever suffered from that kind of anxiety yourself?
Absolutely. I'm in my 20th year as being an educator, starting as a teacher, a coach, athletic director, administrator, and now back into the classroom. So I've been able to run full circle, and I've always had anxiety. And I don't think as an athlete it was more performance anxiety. As a student it was test taker anxiety. But I didn't really have a name for it. I just was like, oh, what is this? Panic attacks. But as an educator, to be very honest, the first onset of a panic attack that I could label and be with and I shut down was as a teacher. And at that moment, I knew something else was going on. And so, and I'm not alone in this. And that was about 12 years ago, maybe. I would say it's kind of my first really dedicated a lot more time of my life into there's something more, let's dig deeper.
Yeah. I think it's so common. I mean, I've experienced it as well, and pretty much every educator and teacher I know, the demands are just really, really high for us, and there's so much energy involved, and I think it's really easy to suffer from these feelings. So, what did you do personally to overcome the anxiety?
Well, what did I try to do? Well, at first I tried to outrun it. I tried to just escape it with probably not the best type of behaviors. For me, 1 was emotional eating. 2 was just a lot more exercise. 3 was suppressing it. Just trying to find other ways to cope besides what I found now, and it's the exact opposite. You can't outrun this, it's normal. So what I was doing prior to just didn't work, so I kept thinking there was something wrong with me. Like, why does this keep happening? I can't even be in my own skin. I gotta get out of here. I'm suffocating. My chest is on fire. I can't think. I'm losing my breath, profuse sweating, and literally, Helen, my body was not responding to the way I knew that it was when I was optimal and normal. And it was just my nervous system being on alert, and it was dysregulated. And as a physical educator, of all people that I do, now this is all really before yoga and mindfulness that I found, I knew the body, I just didn't know it in this way. And I didn't know how to have a healthy relationship with my body because of this, because of my mind. And that interfered with all the language of my heart. And so with what I've learned from this practice is what I tried to do wasn't working, but I had to open up to another way of knowing, and it was what I didn't know. And that created this playground of curiosity and little tentativeness of like, what am I doing? I'm going to go do what? I'm going to do this, sit. You want me to go sit for 10 days in silence? Right, and I did, and so I did everything that would made me uncomfortable to learn how to sit through this and realize there's nothing wrong with me. This is my relationship to what is causing me the anxieties. This is lifing. We're all going to suffer. Suffering exists. But it was a matter of how I can now adapt and relate differently to what is creating these sensations festering underneath my skin. But like, it passes. It doesn't last forever. But I didn't know how to befriend it and label it and take better care of myself while it was happening, because I couldn't keep out running.
Yeah, that's your story sounds so familiar. I think, I've also been in that, like fighting it, like just trying to make it go away. And it was when I stopped fighting and started kind of befriending, as you you said, that the real change came, I guess. Yeah, I think it's a process, isn't it? And like you also mentioned, it doesn't just make anxiety go away; it's still there. It's just it comes at a different pace or feels different, I guess. So tell us a little bit about, because you're like an expert in mindfulness, you're an MBSR teacher as well. Tell us about mindfulness and the body's relationship to stress and the stress response.
In a nutshell, mindfulness there's so many different interpretations of what it can mean, and ultimately, it's John Kabat-Zinn. I went through University of Massachusetts to do the training through the teachers that were trained. He trained with our mindfulness studies program, and truly, it's an awareness that arises by paying attention to the present moment on purpose, without judgment, and with a sense of curiosity. And at first I was like, oh, that's so wordy, I don't know what that means. But what it is, we're Homo sapiens sapiens. And this is what sealed it for me. When you break it down as contextual form, we are known as the species that knows that it knows. And so we're all aware, we all have awareness. It's just how do we use it? And so mindfulness wakes us up to remembering a process of how I can be aware of things, relate to things in a different way, so that my response is not as reactive and a trained response of what our stress cycle does, what we're supposed to do. This body is the smartest thing in the world. It heals itself. Our brain is genius. How it works, look at the studies and how we can now change our brain patterns. So it's this ability to mindfulness, we have to unlearn what we've learned. And it's a process that takes us through the 4 foundations of mindfulness. It starts in your body. That we go to our, how we take a look at our thoughts. Positive, is it pleasant, unpleasant, neutral? How we navigate our stress response systems, and then there's a way to do this. And that's, as we go through this life, we want the quick fix, but we want it now. Really good friends who's telling me it's like going to the orthodontist. Well, I just want straight teeth. No, I don't want to do the braces, it takes too long. I don't want to wear the retainer. Oh, no, it's too expensive. Forget it, just give me straight teeth. Well, you just can't have straight teeth if you need repair. And mindfulness is not a repair. It's being reminded there's nothing wrong with you right now. And that changes the attitude. And so mindfulness is not meant to be heady. It's meant to be felt, experiential learning. And that is why I'm a firm believer it is teacher to student. And it is so important to have someone who does the practice and who lives a life of mindfulness. Because we can read books, we can go to self-help clinics, we can jump up on stages and do this stuff and get motivated, and then it's like, now what? Now that feeling high and reward is over, now what? I'm back to it. Anxiety, too. But it's like time out. I now can relate to and I loved your title, this calming your anxiety, because there's a way. You can calm your anxiety, you can calm your anger, you can calm your fear, you can calm your happiness. I mean, there's this way to be even with calm and peace, because it doesn't matter. In mindfulness, it's secular, there's no religion, it's a complement to any type of faith-based or contemplative practice. It's a beautiful component that's not only in schools, but judiciary, government, correctional facilities. It started in a pain clinic, it's in medicine. It's a universal approach to our humanism. And it's relatable when we allow ourselves to walk through a door that's open with our baggage in tow, but we don't have to open up the suitcases of the past or the unknown. Like, even in a suitcase is all the clothes that we brought that we're not going to wear in the future because we don't know.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a very long-winded version of mindfulness.
No, that was a really, really great way to explain it. So tell us, you touched on something very important, that this is an experiential practice. We can study it, read it about it, and you might learn a lot more, but that's not going to bring a change about in you. So can you talk a little bit more about that and maybe share with us a practical example of how we can bring mindfulness into our world if we're feeling anxious?
Sure. I mean, you can even just do a little practice. And this just shows mindfulness, it's embodied. And how our thoughts create a reaction, our human biology, or human physiology. And there's kind of this chain link reaction. So, let's just go ahead and just take a practice, if you will, just to maybe have like a little flavor of this, and you can get comfortable at home. You can lie on the floor, you can be seated. But I choose to practice by closing my eyes or looking down, and feel free to take on any type of place that allows you to be, kind of come home to this just framework of your body. And so with your eyes are closed, just relaxing your arms, just letting them either fall to your lap, and if you're on the floor, just letting your feet touch the ground. And just beginning to immediately notice the fact that, one, you're breathing. It might be helpful even to take a deeper breath here. And just kind of bring your attention to where you can find and feel the breath the most. And just noticing if you feel the breath the most at the nostrils, at the mouth. Maybe some movement of the chest, and perhaps the shoulders, and your belly. And as you breathe, you don't need to change anything about your breath. Just if you could maybe bring into your mind perhaps a time that maybe you felt a little bit anxious. Maybe that occurrence that happened when that anxiousness and anxiety showed up for you. Noticing here as you recall that time, maybe what you wore, the place and time. Noticing what's happening in the body right now, paying attention to your eyes, just being aware if there's a tightness or in the jaw, maybe in the shoulders. Just becoming more aware of this body's reaction just to this thought. And then seeing here, if you can refocus your attention just here on now, just the breath happening at the tip of the nose. Just coming back to what's happening right here in this moment, being here with what is. And then on the opposite end, just seeing here now, if you can bring in an experience that brought a smile to your face. Maybe this was a gesture of kindness from a stranger or a loved one. Maybe a funny joke that you read or heard. Maybe an embrace or a touch with your pet. Just even noticing how just recalling this image of a person, place, or thing, just noticing now how the body might feel. And if there's a warmth or just a change, maybe in the structure of the eyes and the facial muscles, be more or less of tension. And just being with that for a moment. And just taking your attention here now back to the ability that you're breathing, just coming back. This feeling of openness the breath creates for yourself. And just taking another full, just a slow breath. Maybe with a place of gratitude, being grateful for this ability to breathe here on your own. And keeping that with you, knowing that we're all here together in this community, this network of all breathing beings, all that come with the suitcases of experience, but here to find our way to this place of interconnectedness, derived from a place of peace. Whenever you're ready, feel free to open up your eyes. You can lift up your gaze. And so with that, just kind of taking us on that little journey of extremes from one end of perhaps just how the thoughts might placate in the body, from an anxiety end to a calm or joy end, and we can find and train the mind. And so mindfulness is that way of coming back to what's known as an anchor. The anchor either being the body or the breath or a sound, but using this ability of our awareness to cultivate that space. I was listening to a book audiobook by Glennon Doyle named Untamed, and she talks of this. When you're in nature and you're lost, it's called a survival tree. And this survival tree is something is like your home base. But when you're lost in nature, you have to pick like the biggest tree. It's very unique, but it's your home and it's your special place. And so I was listening to this, and it reminded me so much of the practice that we have to have an anchor to come home to. For some of us that suffer from anxiety, the breath is really, really anxiety-inducing. For me, I'm very kinesthetic, and so I also not just the breath, but I use the body. Like I'll feel my feet against the carpet, or hand on heart for compassion. I even use sometimes stones. I carry a stone like this in my purse. I usually carry one in my pocket, and I just kind of bring my attention to what's real and what's happening right now. Because as we know, the mind will drift, and it's supposed to. But we also can train ourselves how to bring it back. And that's what mindfulness teaches us. We can take a thought, run with it, go down the anxiety train, worry, overwhelm, fear, frustration, or be hooked on the caboose of the train of past and depression, and so we're stretched. So we're before, and we're in the past, but what's happening right now? So a touch point, especially as a yoga teacher, physical educator, we touch pencils, some of us, move our leg, but it's a way that we can bring a calmness to our nervous system. And mindfulness teaches a way to go through a stress response cycle in a relationship to how we can maintain presence and that awareness with an attitude of kindness and non-judgment and a few other things.
Thank you so much, Christy, for sharing that beautiful practice. I really enjoyed it as well, and for sharing all those different points. I love what you said about the stones. I have a stone as well in my purse. And yeah, so I think it's finding what works for each person, isn't it? But as you mentioned, it does not always have to be the breath, although many people find that a great point. So as teachers or adults working with children, sometimes we neglect our self-care. Maybe we think we're too busy, or we just get in this cycle of overwhelm, and which causes anxiety. So, what for you does a good self-care plan look like, and how can we kind of start putting that together for ourselves and also making it a priority?
Yes. Well, I'm so happy you asked this question. And I too, being in we're in a service industry, but it's a disservice to ourselves when we can't give ourselves self-service we need. So we create this paradox, and I've suffered from, I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time to sit. I don't have time to work out. But I guess I have enough time to be miserable. And so I had to get out of my comfort zone. I started a routine. For me, I'm a routine person. I like accountability. You know, if I'm going to hold my students accountable, others accountable, I have to start doing it for myself, but not in a way to punish, but in a way of like, I get to have 5 minutes today. And I started small. It is inch by inch, it's a cinch. And we put so much pressure on ourselves, especially as teachers. We're trying to save the world, saving our kids, or helping their parents, or, phone calls, texts, and, support systems for our other teacher friends. And eventually it's called compassion fatigue, and it's called burnout. And so daily practices for me, what I started doing is immediately with gratitude. I use, again, stones, and it started with a gratitude. I collected stones on the path or on the beach, or, I went to Michael's and bought some. I have these little jars, and I would dump some out, and I would just start tossing gratitude stones in. I have one in my kitchen, I have one in my yoga room, and I even have a little thing in my car. And you can use stones, you can just write some things down. And that's one way for people to practice. But in terms of the body, getting outside, finding a way to have some type of exercise inducing, and start small. Doesn't mean you have to go buy a gym membership or become a yoga teacher or a yoga for Pilates, no. What works for you? You find a way to be in your body and move it, whatever that looks like. And then you'll start to notice, but what do you notice when you're doing it? Oh, you feel better. And maybe I don't actually crave that extra piece of cake again or anymore. And so when we can use it as play and start to, it's a science experiment, but giving yourself that opportunity when you can change your mindset of, I get to do this for myself. I get to give myself a glass of water. I get to be nourished by a meal I'm going to sit down at, and shut the phone off and the TV off, and pay attention to my food and love my body. And so it's easier, yes, said than done, but I would encourage everyone at home to start with something small and then run with it. If it doesn't work, big deal, ditch it. There's a lot of things we can try.
So important, I think, to just keep trying until you find what does work. And as you mentioned, these small steps that sometimes you think, oh, that's not going to do anything, but when you build up those small 5-minute or 1-minute things into your daily routine, they really do make a difference. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to also mention that Christy has a YouTube channel where she has meditation and yoga videos that you can watch. And tell us like what's coming up for you, what kind of courses are you running, and are those going to be online or not probably online now because there doesn't seem to be much in person going on at the moment. But what are you up to in the next few months?
Well, considering everything keeps changing,
Yeah.
in this world, and that's what kind of creates this, anxious world. But I'm here to offer tools. It's a skill set, and I didn't know this years ago, and I wish I did. And that's why I'm an educator, is to be a yoga teacher, to give these tools to my students and fellow teacher leaders out in the field, in the trenches, and parents who also are watching this. I have up and coming, that's already on Amazon, Teachers Pay Teachers. Etsy, a bunch of different sites. It's on my website, is the book, Gratitude and Mindfulness Learning Journal. Great little 10-minute place, it's with it being online, you can download it, teachers, those can be part of your online learning systems. I also have upcoming on Wednesday, August 12th, a mindfulness-based stress reduction program. I will be running, it's an 8-week program, and it's for specifically social emotional wellness, and incorporating the basis of MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, in addition to some fusing wellness techniques with this social emotional learning language that is really prevalent in a lot of schools right now. So, and I are on YouTube and with yoga and some mindfulness stuff, and Instagram as well. So.
Right. Yeah, sounds wonderful. So we'll have all the links to Christy's book and her course and her social media if you want to reach out to her or follow her and see what she's doing. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing all the ideas and the wonderful practice that you shared, but also those really great ways that we can bring that self-care into our lives as teachers and to maybe help us manage our anxiety in a better way. So thank you so much, Christy.
Thank you, and thank you again, Helen, for the opportunity. Thank you at home for being a part of this experience as well.